Hi, welcome to videomathlessons.com. This is an Algebra 2 and Trigonometry quick lesson. Lesson number 3, quadratics, especially the discriminant. So first we got to talk about what is discriminant. So a discriminant is part of the quadratic formula. It's the inside part of the radical. It's called b squared minus 4ac. That is the formula for it. Notice there is no radical sign around it. It's the inside part of the quadratic formula. Now, you have 4 choices when you're going to have discriminant. So, and they're going to give you the following answers. So, we're going to talk about when do you hit which one. So, for the first one, if you plug in and you get the value of a 0, that will give you keyword equal roots. It's the only time you have equal roots. And now we have some other choices. Well, now if I can plug in my values, I get perfect squares. They'll be real, rational, and unequal. Irrational will be non-perfect squares. And finally, imaginaries would be negative numbers. Now, don't forget, where do these values come from? It comes from the general form ax squared plus bx plus c. And remember to make sure it is set equal to 0. This is the quadratic, right? So that's a quadratic. That's a quadratic equation. This is part of the quadratic formula inside. It's called the discriminant. So there's a bunch of different words floating around. So just be careful. Just know the vocabulary. So number 1 says the roots. Roots we solve for x. Of x squared plus 7x minus 8 are, and they give you these words. When they do this, it's talking about nature of the roots. They don't actually want you to do the whole problem, but they just want you to know the nature. But guess what? If you really have no idea about this stuff that we're talking about, then you do the whole problem. Take a look at the answers and pick the right choice. There's nothing wrong with that. So if you have to, you throw it in a quadratic formula. You can factor it, complete the square, however you want to do it. I'm going to use this formula, though, because it's actually a little bit easier. So I'm just going to use the formula, b squared minus 4ac. And I'm going to plug in. So here my a value is 1. A is 1. B is positive 7. And c is negative 8. So I'm going to plug those values into this. So it's 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 8. And I'm going to type it in exactly the way it's written, just like that. And actually what you might want to do is sometimes, just to be safe, we can put parentheses around that also. That's not bad. That's a pretty good habit to get into. So that's what I'm going to use. So 7 squared inside parentheses. The square is outside. Actually, I could do it by using the square button. I don't know why I was pushing that exponent, but that's okay. It still could work. So 7 squared minus 4 parenthesis 1 parenthesis open parenthesis negative 8. Make sure you hit the negative button, not subtract. Sometimes people do that and they get error and people don't know where it's from. It'll say go to, press the go to, and then it'll bring you to that line and you just kind of look for it. You'll see it. So let's see what this equals. I get an 81. Now you need to know 81 is perfect. Square root of 81 is 9. So this is perfect. And you got to memorize your choices. Perfect are real, rational, unequal. Now, what would this graph look like? This graph, I really don't know what this graph is going to look like. But it's going to look something like this. Okay? It's going to intersect. That's a pretty horrible looking parabola. It's going to intersect here. There's going to be 2 nice roots. That's going to give me those rationals. If it was irrational, it would also look like this. It just wouldn't be hitting the nice roots, It'd be some radical thing. So as we go, we'll talk about the graphs as we do them. So let's try this one. Number 2, x squared minus 10x plus 25. So once again, we use our formula, b squared minus 4ac. That's a minus sign. And I'm just going to plug it. Now this time, now take a look. A is 1, b is negative 10, and c is 25. So now I got to be careful of the squaring the negative. That's why it's a good habit to put parentheses around it. 4 and a 1 and a positive 25. And once again, this goes in the calculator as is with parentheses, -10. And when you square a negative, you should know you get positive. If you forget the parentheses, you will have a negative, and that's the bad part. -4, parenthesis 1, 25. Okay, so let's take a look, and I get a 0. Okay, now once again, we went through the choices. 0 is the one that said equal, and so that's going to be real, rational, equal. Well, what's this graph going to look like? Well, I know that this graph is going to cross at, if I factor this, I can factor this pretty quick. So it's x minus 5, x minus 5. So I know the roots are at +5, +5. Well, that means what it does is when it says equal, it really just hits the curve at one spot at that root 5. That's why it's an equal root. Sometimes you'll hear it called double root. It's a double root at 5. That's what it means. It just touches one time. So a graph could look like this. It could be on the other side. It could be pointing down, right? That'd be a negative a value. But all those are for the equal. Touches one spot. So it's called, sometimes you hear it called tangent to the x-axis. Tangent to the x-axis. And so let's try another one. Number 3. Okay, now it's going backwards. Now they give me they tell you that it's irrational. Irrational. They want you to find which number. Now we just did equal. That was a 0. We said negatives were imaginary. So I got a choice between 7 and 4. Well, if I take the square root of 4, I get a nice number. It's not that. I'm looking for the non-perfect square, which would be choice 3. And finally, oh, we never talked about this. This is the one graph we haven't talked about. See this graph, how it's hanging and it doesn't touch? I'm telling you, that's imaginary. It's the only one we haven't talked about. It could be hanging up in the air. You know, it could be over here. It just doesn't cross the x-axis. That has imaginary roots. Now, notice what they did here. Just be careful. They just set this f of x equals 0. It's because it's supposed to be set to 0. People get a little messed up with it. It just messes them up. So just don't worry about that. Okay, we got 2 more. A little more complicated because now we have lead coefficients. So a is 9. 3. -4. And just use our formula, b squared minus 4ac. Three squared minus 4, 9, and a -4. Calculator, one shot. Remember, square the outside. -4. I get 153. That is not perfect. It's not negative. It's not 0. It's not perfect. So it gives me irrational roots. I don't know what they are. I just know they're irrational. That's all I know. Let's try it again. It's my A, B's, and C's. Once again, b squared minus 4ac. And once again, right in the calculator. -16. And that's imaginary. That's it. Thanks for watching. This is Video Math Lessons. Hopefully it helped. If not, you can hit up the website to find some more lessons. Have a nice day.